Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mike Hattery and Jake Thompson. We're doing our weekly, slightly ineffective, very good guessing, all betting prop bets. This is Tennessee Titans versus the Cleveland Browns. The Browns sit at 1-2. Titans sit at 1-3. It's in Tennessee. We're going to kind of run through the game by talking about a few of the different players involved. And we're going to begin by looking at the Titans. What sort of assets are threatening to the Browns? So we're going to start with Delanie Walker. And while he's revived my fantasy season, he is particularly dangerous. So we have the over-under set at 100 yards for Delanie Walker, which sounds really, really large. But the Browns have struggled against tight ends. Walker's had a huge season. And what do you got for us, Jake?
I think over. I've loved the play of this guy this season, no matter whether it was Walker under center or Whitehurst last week.
He's had a lot of success as a safety blanket, which is surprising. And the Titans have what seems like a lot of talent on offense. Maybe it just is pick value, where we assume it's talent based on where it's been picked, as well as what's projected potential-wise. But, you know, if you have Walker backed by Hunter, Wright, and Bishop Sankey, who's looking to get more carries this week as Ken Wisdom kind of finagles with his offense, which moves us to Hunter here. We have the over-under at 60 yards, and we going over-under here.
I'll go over. I'm a big fan of Justin Hunter. Have been since he came out in the draft last year. I really think he's got that big playability, and he's got a long future with Tennessee.
So I guess the wise thing to do with almost every pass receiver, even if it's Jake Locker or Charlie Whitehurst under center, is to bet the over with the Browns, because their pass defense has been really poor this season. Hayden's underperformed. Gilbert has not looked ready, and Buster Skrine has probably played the most competently of all three, which is just it's awful. It's not good. So, Hunter, I'm going to take the under because I don't think he's going to get heavily targeted, which moves us to Kendall Wright, who I think is the guy who's really going to go off. Now, we set the over-under fairly high here at 80 yards. What do you got?
I will say under, because I think this could be a good game for him.
Okay. So far against the Browns this year, number one wide receivers have had pretty solid success. Now, picking which one's the number one in this situation is challenging, because honestly, they're targeted. But Kendall Wright he's been fairly heavily targeted. He hasn't had a lot of success, but he's a talent. We accept that. Last year, he had a really solid season with a lot of instability under center. I think he goes over. I think he gets 100 and a touchdown, and I would bet on him in fantasy this week. Lastly, on the Titans side of the ball, we have Bishop Sankey, one of my favorite names in the NFL. Hasn't gotten a lot of touches.
There's a lot of buzz about him coming into this season. Everybody thought he was going to take this position by storm.
When you can't take a position by storm when it's held down by Sean Green, you really got to question how talented he actually is. I think the Titans have been begging for someone to take over running the ball for the last 3 years. Chris Johnson really struggled. They had Lendell White in there for a little while. I mean, it's been a messy backfield situation. The offensive line hasn't been that poor. So the question really is Bishop Sankey that guy? We have him at 50 yards. I don't think he gets there. I think that anytime we talk about increasing touches, we really never know how much that is. We don't know how much the game's going to dictate touches. So I'm scared to bet the over, especially with Sean Green still involved. What do you got?
I'll take the under too, because I think that the Browns' pass defense at this time can be exploited, and Sankey's still very unproven.
Yeah, I mean, you can run the ball with success against the Browns, and you can pass the ball with success. So I think passing the ball with success is where you want to go. Whitner hasn't been that impressive. He's a solid run defender safety. Gibson has been very impressive in pass defense, or at least solid. He's been making plays. But they really need a good week from Whitner, Hayden, and one of Skrine or Gilbert to really establish that this pass defense can do what it needs to. And it's got to happen soon so this team can be competent. Lastly, we have Jake Locker, over under 2 TDs. We don't even know if he's playing this weekend. Could be Charlie Whitehurst. Could be Clipboard Jesus, as I'm told he is. I don't know. I really Zach Mettenberger. I think he's the future of this team, so I don't care about either of these guys. And Jake Locker's ruined my whatever. So anyway, 2 TDs if he's in the game. Betting on this whether this Browns defense can stabilize.
I'd bet on Jake Locker for 2 TDs.
I'd take the under. Hopefully he doesn't play, so I'm right. Next we have the Browns side of the ball. We're going to look at Jordan Cameron. And we have the over-under at 50, and I'm going to start here. I think Jordan Cameron goes off. Last season, Brian Hoyer started 2 games. In both of those games, Cameron was targeted 9 and 11 times. He had a touchdown in both games as well as a lot of yardage. I think he has 75 yards. I think he's finally healthy. I think he scores a touchdown. I think he's a big game, and I think we're looking at him as a really strong offensive weapon, which has kind of declined over the last few weeks.
I think I completely agree, and I think somebody has to step up in this Browns offense. I think we've seen good things from Hawkins and Austin, but you need somebody to be the go-to guy for Hoyer.
Hoyer. Next we have our boy Andre Hawkins. Well, it's Andrew, but Andre Hawkins sounds way cooler, and I've told him that. He doesn't listen. Whatever. But for Hawkins, we have 60 yards. This seems like kind of a cheap over-under. I think it's an easy over because I think, every week he's going to give you 70 to 80. He's going to work the middle of the field. Worth noting that he has 4 plays of over 20 yards so far this season, which means he's small, but he's shown an ability to make big plays, which is something that's really impressive with really no other significant wide receiver weapons to this point in the season.
I'll take the over as well. I think this guy is the wide receiver that's getting your volume right now. Hoyer seems to have really developed a rapport with him and looks for him. Lastly,
we have Miles Austin in terms of receiving the football. And Austin has been a pretty exciting find for the Browns so far. Obviously, in Dallas, the question was whether or not he was healthy enough to be on the field. And he's been healthy enough to be on the touchdowns. Hoyer seems to look for him in the red zone over almost anyone else. That may be because Cameron wasn't healthy to this point, but he does seem to be targeted. We have him at 50 yards and 0.5 touchdowns as the over-under. So what do you got for me?
I'm going to take over, and I'm on both counts. I definitely see him getting a touchdown in this game. I absolutely agree with you on the red zone presence.
Austin, I'm going to take the over on the touchdowns and the under on the yards. I think he goes 4 for 45 with a touchdown and another solid day. And, there's a wide receiving core, and Shanahan's done a really great job. Hoyer looks really good. I think that Hoyer, statistically by itself, without even looking what he's playing with, has been outstanding. He's top 10 in D yards, according to Pro Football Outsiders. In total QBR, he's in the top 15. This guy has played really strong quarterback, and that's not measuring what's around him. So you really have to be impressed with what he's done with his talent, which brings us to our Hoyer over-under. We have him at 225 yards and 1.5 touchdowns.
I will go the over on both counts. I think he winds up with 2 TDs in this game. I think it might not be very much beyond 225 yards, but I can still see the over.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think if you set this at 250, I take the under. 225, I'm going to take the over. I think he probably throws for 230 to 240. I think he has a lot of success against this Titans defense. It's not a strong defense. He threw very, very well against the Ravens, which is a pretty solid pass defense. And the healthy Jordan Cameron. The touchdowns, I'm going to take the over. I think he throws 2. And lastly, we have our running backs. So we're going to run through these, with some brevity. We have 2 over-unders of note. Tate at 60 yards and Kroll at 50 yards. What do you got in those 2?
I'm going to take the under on Tate. He's coming off of an injury, and I really think this could be a coming-out game for Kroll, which, he already has come out, but even further in this game. I'll take the under for Tate.
Yeah, I think this is really this backfield is a three-headed monster now, and it's really dangerous to take the over for any. I will take the under for Tate. I think he goes for 50. I think he gets 10 carries and then a couple of passes, a couple more touches. Kroll, I'm going to take the over, and I'm really just betting on this guy's talent. You know, every advanced tool or statistic we have that measures running backs tells us that Kroll is really good. And if you watch the games, if you're using your eyes, it tells you that Kroll is really good. He's the best running back on this team, and he has the potential to be a top 5 to 10 running back in this league, I think. He's elusive. He's strong. He has great vision, and this blocking scheme is tremendous. I think he's a better version of Alfred Morris in the Kyle Shanahan's zone blocking scheme, which could make him really, really good over the next few years in the NFL. So lastly, we have the line, and we have to pick the game score here. So the line is Titans by 1.5 at home. What do you got, Jake?
I'm gonna go with 27-20 Browns.
27-20 Browns. I'm going to agree. Browns have put up 21 points 3 straight games for the first time since, I believe the 1960s. They've looked absolutely outstanding on offense. They're facing a defense that struggled mightily, especially against Indy. Obviously, Hoyer isn't Andrew Luck, but Hoyer's pretty good if you haven't been paying attention. I'm going to go 24-20. I think Hoyer grabs a couple of TDs. I think Kroll grabs one. And I think the Browns move to 2-2 and run through a pretty nice schedule coming up. That's all we have for now. See you next week.